Did you know that all human beings still use the exact same decision-making process that we used when we were primitive cave-dwelling people? Our decision-making has remained the same for millions and millions of years. And it can no longer stay like that, because the way we make decisions is we, as naturally as breathing, we base all our decisions on needs, desires, or to address a problem with no further thought than that. That's how we are born to make decisions. But the problem is that genetically embedded framework is for when we lived in a primitive world. So our only technology in those days was sticks and stones, and we actually couldn't harm our environment. But if you fast forward developing fire and our technology advancing through to this day and age, our technology got way more sophisticated, and what it did was change our social behavior within our ecosystem. So with the development of fire, we suddenly had the potential to do great harm to our environment. And slowly but surely, every one of our decisions started to come with unavoidable cultural, economic, and environmental consequences further down the line. Now, we can't do anything to any of those three aspects of our lives in isolation from it causing a knock-on effect on one of those three. So economies, societies, and the land are so tied together in a web of complexity that we can't make a decision for one without affecting the other. But the way we make decisions isolates those from each other. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is a very simple and current topic of reducing our decisions to our needs, desires, or to a problem without considering the knock-on consequences which happen later, inevitably with most of our decisions to today in the modern world. So everything we consume or use comes from the land and eventually goes back to the land. Now, when we were primitive, that made perfect sense. Everything was natural. We ate animals, we used their skins, we collected berries or seeds or nuts, we ate them, we couldn't chop down trees, we weren't growing crops, we hadn't developed chemicals. So everything was very natural. But fast forward to today, and the same thing applies. Everything we consume or use comes from the land and eventually goes back to the land. But today we are using much more artificial processes to make things, and we are also producing much more artificial products. So terrible things happen when we make decisions with no further thought to the bigger picture and inevitable environmental impact most of our decisions come with. So one of the biggest problems that came with our reductionist decision-making process once our technology advanced was that we started to eradicate monumental numbers of herding, grazing animals that were kept bunched together and on the move by their pack-hunting predators on the world's grasslands and arid areas. And we replaced their role on the grasslands with fire, and that has resulted in many, many years of the grasslands desertifying. So now globally we have about 2/3 of our planet have desertified and have died off because they don't have these big herds of animals on them. And we've now discovered that we can use holistic decision making with holistic planned grazing of livestock to mimic wild animals and regenerate the land to improve wildlife numbers and try to bring back the balance of wild animals. So one of the big hot topics that everybody is on about is becoming vegan. Now, I think everyone would agree, or most people would agree, that your personal diet is absolutely your choice. Nobody can tell you what to eat. Nobody should be judging you by what you eat. And So if you want to be vegan and not eat animal products, then don't. That's entirely 100% up to you and nothing to do with anyone else. But it's become this thing where vegans are trying to push their ideals onto other people and try to stop other people eating meat and trying to force everybody to go vegan. And even though their intentions are good because they don't want to harm animals and they don't want to harm the environment, they're not looking at it from a big picture point of view. They're looking at it from a reduced decision-making point of view, which, like I said, needs to evolve so that we look at a bigger picture. So the result of this, of people saying everyone should become vegan, is we have millions of people blaming livestock for causing environmental damage instead of human management of livestock, because the livestock aren't causing the damage and fossil fuels don't cause damage. That's like me blaming a gun, and not if I get shot, so I blame the gun and not the person that pulled the trigger. So this is management. And it's resulted in people supporting the manufacturing of unnatural animal products and dietary supplements and creating conflict with non-vegans. So we've got this huge millions of people blaming livestock, which is the consequences of that is going to be more and more demand for fake animal products and unnatural dietary supplements, which can only result in a huge increase in mass industrial crop production and more factories, which all use environmentally damaging processes to mass produce artificial products that are unhealthy for us and lethal for our environment in the long run. And anything that harms our environment will ultimately harm every single living thing on our planet. So the more unnatural the process and the more unnatural the product, the more harm it will have on our environment in the long run. And this decision is to save animals. Mostly, that's why people are becoming vegan, and to save our environment. But the knock-on effect of people doing that is going to cause far more suffering to far more animals and our environment. So what people should be doing is, if that's a personal choice, is you do that if you like, but try to look for better practices or better ways of supporting things, and that leads us to more and more natural things. Because remember, as soon as we produce plastic or something false, it's going to affect our land. So just the Beyond Meat burger, there are 18 different ingredients in that burger that are not natural. They're not naturally produced. So if you went into each one of those ingredients in isolation and found out how it was grown and what environmental damage it has, you would see a big problem. And the same is with dietary supplements. So to make a protein supplement involves growing huge amounts of crop. So it encourages industrial agriculture, GMOs, more sprays, more environmentally damaging agriculture. So this is because it's not looking at a bigger picture. So what holistic decision making does, which is how our decision making needs to evolve to enable us to manage that social, economic, and environmental complexity that all our decisions come with, is if you really want to be kind to all animals, reconnect to nature and what's natural by learning to make your decisions within a holistic context, which always puts the health of our environment first. So a holistic context is a profound statement about how we want our lives to be, what behaviors would bring that life about, and it's all based on a description of what our life-supporting environment must look like, because we cannot survive if our life-supporting environment is being damaged, which it is. So it's just always making us look at a bigger picture. So developing a holistic context and checking all our decisions are in line with it is completely. It's very, very simple, but it's unnatural because we automatically reduce our decisions to our needs, desires, or problems, because that's how we're born. So it takes a little bit of practice to start doing this, but once you do, you really see a huge difference. And then And I'm also talking about it from a government point of view, a government developing policies, because a government develops policies in the same way. Don't think about knock-on consequences later of our actions. And when we have an agricultural policy developed like that without further thought, it just becomes mass-produce food as fast as possible, and we end up with lethal and barbaric factory farms, industrial agriculture, which is the most destructive and extractive industry on the planet. So we need to be pushing for governments to be using this. We need individuals to be doing this. And all holistic management does is ensure that we are consistently and simultaneously making better and better decisions for us, for our livelihoods, our values, and for our environment, across the board. And we're always being led towards our holistic context and not away from it.